Okay, the reason why I like this diagram is because it's simple, but it shows clearly all of the different areas where a young person or a child can get involved or can be subject to bullying, and for lots of different reasons. You know, if you look at the top left, whether it's be those that are in school or clubs or whatever, all of those different things where things can be happening. And I deliberately left Scouts and Guides on there because there's no reason why our children can't be members of Scouts and Guides groups. None at all. Youth clubs, music, sports, on their way to places in class, all of those different places. And then over to the side, the different ways, rumours and gossip, physically, verbally. We've just had in one of the homes I'm involved with where two young people in the home weren't getting on wonderfully well. One of the girl in the home told her friends why she was not happy with the person she was sharing the house with and gave them his Snapchat details. So he started to get threats on Snapchat from people he didn't know that were friends of the other lass in the home. So it can happen in any way that information is shared, and it's working on that with them and the reasons why. So this is something that you can use as a practical level as well. So forms of bullying, as we've said, and these are all things you know, and I know you know them, but it's looking at them once you put them into sort of lists like this. It's when we look at our children, they are subject to risk of all of these things. So it can be verbal, calling names, sarcastic remarks, put downs, any kind of physical, hitting, pushing. Psychological can often be more harmful because that's not as easy to see. And that's deliberately excluding from a group or spreading malicious stories. You know, often this happens where a young person is part of a group and for no apparent reason, everybody else turns against them and they shun them or they ignore them. They sort of bounce up to them and they turn their backs. That kind of thing could be really, really soul destroying. Threatening, demands for money, things such as phones and technology, clothes or toys. Homophobic. We all know this one, either bullying because someone is part of the LGBTQ plus community or using homophobic languages as an insult. Racist, overtly name calling or reacting negatively to someone's race, religion, colour, or covertly by moving away, refusing to touch, expression, because you don't know, but you can tell quite often, can't you, if somebody is racist, if they won't touch you or they move away or they sort of stand in a way that is different. Disability, overtly name calling again, reacting negatively, mimicking speech or tics. That can be something that years ago comedians would often use stammering as a form of humor. Now we realize how damaging that can be. So any kind of disability that you can see or not see, but is used as a way of putting somebody down is bullying. Because of how they look, I've just put in sort of some of the ones that come up, goth. And the reason why I used goth was because there was that horrible case a few years ago of a young couple being beaten up because of how they looked, and the girl died. Ginger. I don't know what it is about this country, but so often people who have got ginger hair, ginger beards are picked on, bullied, called names as a result of it. It's helped a bit with Ed Sheeran, but it's still there. Whether somebody is fat or thin. And that's something that happens a lot, particularly around weight, and not just for our young girls, young boys as well, young men want to look a certain way, and there can be a pressure if they're not. And cyberbullying. Technology is fantastic, but it can also be horribly damaging. And that can be through phones, the internet, instant messaging, social networking sites, chat rooms, message boards, on games. You know, our children very often game with people they don't know. And they can get insulted on there. But if they're playing with people that they think are their friends, and then all of a sudden their friends start calling them names, that causes more stress for them. And these are all really obvious ones, but they're ones that we should be aware of. And part of this should be included in your bullying policy, so it's clear and so that your staff can be reminded. Now, I thought long and hard about putting in signs and symptoms of bullying, because very often these signs and symptoms can just be being a teenager. It can be because they're involved in something else. It could be because a relationship has ended. It could be because they've been drawn into a different friendship group that we might not be happy with. It could be because they're not happy at home. There's lots and lots of reasons why, particularly young people, start to change, their behaviours can change. But if you start with more than one of these and you start looking at it and you unpick, and you should always unpick if some of these signs start to happen, you should always unpick what is happening with that child. Talk to them, find out, observe what your staff are doing with them, get your staff to be more observant. So these are just some of the things, and we've got 2 of these. So stops enjoying school. So they previously, and you finally got them into school, and I know for all of us that is a real battle often to get our children to school, but they've stopped enjoying it all of a sudden. Their progress, which had been doing well, suddenly is limited. They're easily distressed and cries easily. Again, that's teenage behavior, but also it could be a sign. They start to become, this is what I mean about looking at things that are different. They start to become disruptive, aggressive, they run away. I know we use the terminology go missing, but it's running away from. So are they running away from school? Are they running away from something in the home? What is going on? I've started the beginning of this with all things to do with school, because very often our children are othered, aren't they? Because they're different, because they don't live with family. They go to school, they have to explain, or sometimes they feel they have to explain why different people are dropping them off. Or worse still, why they always come in a taxi instead of maybe going on the bus with their friends or walking with their friends, especially if they've had to move to a care home that is a long distance away from the school they were at. Why have you suddenly moved all the way over there? Because often placements aren't planned near where a child is already going to school. They become school phobic. They become secretive or fearful. If you notice that the possessions are suddenly damaged or missing, so you say, you know, where's your bag? Oh, I've lost it. Or what's happened to your bag? I dropped it on the way home. Is being aware of some of those things. So when your child goes out to school in the morning, look at, this is why we ask, you know, in Mentor, it is about being aware of what they're wearing if they potentially go missing, but it's about protecting them from during the day as well. When they leave the house in the morning, like you would with your own children, what are they wearing? What are they carrying? How do they look? And you record that. When they come home, again, what are they wearing? What are they carrying? How do they look? So if they come home and part of their shirt is torn or is dirty for no apparent reason, and they perhaps haven't been playing football on the way home, and I'm including girls as well as boys in there, you know, or they haven't been doing a sport on the way home, or they haven't walked home through the woods or whatever. What has happened? Look at them when they come in. Now, that can be difficult for us when we have different shift patterns. So a different member of staff might see them go to school, and a different member of staff might see them come home. This is where your recording is really important. Record how they looked, record how they were, so that we can already start picking up right away if there are any issues when they come home. If they develop a fear of walking to and from school, if they've been able to do that. If they stop eating, I know that can be a sign of other things, but it's about part of this pattern. If their money is suddenly lost, again, that could be something else. You know, they're using it to buy other things, but it could be that somebody has taken it. Or if they suddenly start stealing for no apparent reason, that could be to pay somebody else off. More signs. And again, all of these can be different things that you see with teenagers, but when you start to put all of these things together, so headaches, insomnia, rashes, stomach aches, signs of stress, becomes reclusive, stops talking to you, and that is often one because they're thinking, Why would you understand? You're older, or you're a member of staff, you haven't been there. They may look at you and think you've got it all together because you've got a job, you come to work, you dress really well, you've got a car, all of those, whatever's going on in their head. So you wouldn't understand. Also, some of our young people are very well aware that we have to write everything down, and they might not want it written down. So be aware of that for them. Truancy, vomiting, self-harming, suicidal feelings or attempts. And that's not being over dramatic in talking about suicidal feelings or attempts, because feeling bullied, being bullied is awful. Nowhere feels safe. They don't feel safe even with you. They don't feel safe at school. If the bullying is happening at home, that's even worse, because where do you go? You can't go to your bedroom if it's on your phone. So it's about being aware that all of those things could be percolating around for our children. Any questions at this point? No? Good. But remember, children who bully, as well as those who are bullied, are both victims. And I think we forget that sometimes, because it's very easy to, especially when it's our child that may be being bullied, is just see the other child as a thug. But why are they doing it? So again, then there's, when you look beneath the surface of a child that is bullying, let me double check here. Can you all see this diagram? Yeah?
Yes. Yes.
Fabulous. We're on course. So for a child who is bullying, and some of you may see this already, I'm thinking of a child I know in a home who was targeting a member of staff. And it could only be described as bullying, the way he treated this member of staff. It didn't matter what he said or did, it wasn't good enough. And he put him down and chipped away and chipped away and chipped away at him. And would do things like in the car, would just covertly pinch his arm, just out of nowhere. But this is all linked with where this child is at, because he has no contact with any of his birth family because they refuse to see him because he makes allegations. And this member of staff looked like his uncle. When it was all unpicked, he looked like his uncle who had a close relationship with mum's brother. And now all of a sudden he's not seeing him either because he's not seeing mum. So he was taking all of those feelings out on this member of staff. So for a child who bullies, if you look beneath the surface, they've had their own abuse, fear. They could be seeking attention, power, or control as a way of feeling how they feel about themselves. Peer pressure, joining in. It's like there are so many children who want to belong. They're desperate to belong. And they're also people pleasers. And so in a way of doing that, they will join in with behaviours that perhaps they wouldn't normally do and bully somebody else in order to fit in. Poor self-esteem. They might feel that they're really unattractive and therefore they can pick on something in somebody else. Unsure how to make friends. A lot of our children have been moved from one care home to another, and they move in and they don't know how long they're going to stay. They don't know how the relationship is going to be. And that's really, really hard for them. So it's very difficult for them to make friends. And maybe being part of this group that aren't very pleasant is a way of doing that for them. Have been bullied themselves. And so it's kind of a relief, take it out on somebody else. Their own trauma, poor coping skills, their own stress. Or if you're looking, some of children that are bullying our children that maybe aren't in the care system, permissive or authoritarian parenting. The child's view of themselves means that they feel they're all powerful, or they feel they're being pushed down. And so they're able to take it out on somebody that they perceive to be weaker than them. They could have a sensory processing disorder, in which case they don't understand the impact of what they're doing on other people, or mimicking the media. We'll see when we come further on in the presentation. I worry about banter, because I think that banter, unless everybody within that discussion understands it, is bullying. and it can be taken too far. And very often you'll see on TV programs, on chat shows, on YouTube. I've been watching some different comedians on YouTube recently, and they use banter in that way. And that's okay if you all understand what that's about. But if you don't understand, banter can very quickly become bullying. So if you think that your child may be a bully, we've seen it different ways that we can look at in talking with, and both of these tie in with talking if we think our child is being bullied, but the same if we think our child is bullying. It's about making sure that we cover all of this. So in your homes, have firm rules that do not accept mean, nasty, or spiteful behavior towards others. And teach your child about respecting other people's rights. Don't just assume he, she, or they will know this, and constantly stress how others feel. And it's important not to do things that make other people feel bad. And try to teach your child to treat others how he, she, or they would like to be treated themselves. Teach your child to negotiate. Use role play to teach them how to ask for things that they want, rather than demanding or forcing their will on others. And that is something that you can do with a child who you feel, who comes to you and says they're being bullying as well.
And I felt this firsthand. When I first started Brownies, there was some... You probably would never see this at...
Could you mute your conversation, please? Thank you. Although that probably sounded more interesting than this. Okay, so role play can be used really, really well with a child that is being bullied, as well as a child who may bully. You don't have to get them to act that out. We're not looking for, somebody perhaps to go on the stage, but actually role play what they could have said, what they would have said, and develop those coping skills in that way. It's really, really effective to use that. Very often, I know you'll be doing mediation with young people that may have fallen out with each other in the home. But as part of your mediation, you could do role play, get them to play each other's parts, so they get to understand how it felt for each other in that situation. Keep a record of all bullying incidents. This will help you to identify whether anything in particular is causing stress to your child and triggering bullying behavior. And do not use bullying tactics at home yourself to make your child do what you want. I'm not saying that any of your staff will do this, but I'm aware some staff do. A young person has been keeping the house up at night. I'm going to use an example from a home that I know of recently, has been keeping the other children up at night. Staff are all tired because it's like 3, 4 in the morning, and young person A has got music blaring, and young person B is banging on the wall trying to make young person A shut up. They're kind of bullying each other by this point. Staff haven't slept. Staff are frustrated the next day. They tell the deputy manager, who, when they come in, because they've been called in the middle of the night as well, and they're tired, instead of looking at it calmly, they run up the stairs and shout at child A. That's bullying. It's looking at it calmly and talking to them calmly rather than reacting in that way. So if you do that, if a member of staff does that, young people see that and think, yeah, I can do that as well. They're doing it. And staff that maybe aren't as experienced think, oh yeah, okay, that's a good learning lesson for me. So it's about not doing that. It's about being aware yourself. Build self-esteem by identifying and attending activities your child may be and is good at. Let's find things that all of our children are good at, whether it be a sport, whether it be dancing, whether it even be gaming. Do the gaming with them. And if something they're really good at, learn from them, get them to show you and give them that praise. Make sure you're positive about all of your child's good cooperative behavior. So if they do something well, say thank you. Don't take it for granted. And remember to tell your child not only they are loved, but they are liked and why. And the reason why I use that, and I've left that in, is because very often our children don't feel loved, and we show them affection in the safe way that we can as professionals. But they know when they go out into the world, they're not going to be loved by everybody they meet, but they need to know that they are likable and what is likable about them, and that they can be liked, because that's a way of making friends as well and building. So what do you like about all of your children? Take a moment to yourselves and with your staff to think about what is likable, and make sure you tell them that. You know, so for example, it could be a child who, when you come in on shift, will offer to make you a cup of tea. That's a really thoughtful thing to do. Thank them, look for what it is that is positive, and say, you are very thoughtful, thank you. That's something to be liked for. Somebody who makes you laugh all the time, tell them, thank you for making me laugh, and know that they're likable. Find things. Every single one of your children will have something that is likable about them. How often do we tell them that? And if they know those things and they're reinforced with that, and their self-esteem is growing as a result of that, that helps them to not be bullied and also to not bully. Does that all make sense at this point? Yeah?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I know you're still there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good. So if you think, oh gosh, I've gone too far now. If you think your child is being bullied, so we've looked at if we think they're being bullying, but if you think one of your children is being bullied, listen and talk. Very obvious, isn't it? But very often that doesn't happen. Take the time to listen to your child's worries and successes about the events in their day. Make sure there is a gap, there is space when your young people come home from school, from an activity, from college, from having contact with family, from being out on free time, me time, whatever you call it. Find out what the day has been like. Very often they just want to go to their rooms. Make sure that somebody takes the time and gives them that space to talk about anything. Explain that bullies are children who may be upset or sad, perhaps because of unhappy events or situations at home. Try to take away the bogeyman element of it. Because you know, it's like if you feel you're being bullied, somebody's putting you down, you end up thinking that they are all powerful and that they're going to push you around. But actually, it's really good if we can help our young people to see that the child doing the bullying is just a child as well, and they've got potentially other things going on as well. Tell your child clearly it's not their fault and that no one deserves to be bullied. I can't emphasize that one enough, because often if a child is being bullied, is having a hard time, adults in their lives can implicitly sort of say, well, you know, if you didn't do this and if you didn't do that, it's never somebody's fault for being bullied. Make sure it's clear for them. And again, back to role play. Use role play to teach your child how to cope with and handle incidents. For example, not showing you're upset or bothered by teasing, saying firmly you don't like it, walking away, giving them those tools, if you like, to stand taller and to feel more confident and to move away. Explain there's no shame in keeping out of a bully's way. It's not you running, it's not you hiding. You don't have to be in their space, you can move on. And then you as adults, be alert when things to be getting worse. You may need to intervene. And it's important that you do, if that is the case. You are the adult in this situation. You are the one who's caring. You're the one who's responsible. If need be, step in. And they say, oh, please don't talk to the school about this. Please don't talk to, do it, because it's a way of protecting. Be alert, build self-esteem by identifying and attending activities your child may be and is good at, the same as with the child who's being bullied. Always praise your child, especially for acts of courage. So if they come home and say to you, so-and-so was out to get me and I walked home the long way, that's an act of courage, because it's a longer journey. They moved away. That's brave. Do not overprotect your child, as it may only make him, her, or them feel more vulnerable and helpless. Again, don't other them. Don't step in and, you know, unless you physically feel that there is a need for that, that they are going to be physically harmed, you don't have to walk them to school and back every day. And then the reason why I've put this one in this phrase, is your child dominated at home by siblings, their peers? By saying siblings, is that, for example, one of the homes I'm working with at the moment has got a sibling group of 3 in there, 12-year-old twins and a 10-year-old. And the 2 sisters, if it's not watched, bully their brother. And they can be dominated. The youngest one actually dominates the boy, and it's lovely to watch, but not probably if you're the boy. Quite often it's really funny. But being aware that if you have got a sibling group in your home, don't look at it and think, oh, it's siblings, it's sibling behavior. Bullying happens in siblings as well. So be aware of it in your children's homes if you have got a sibling group, but also their peers. Be aware that the peers can be bullying each other in your home, and help all of them address this and turn it around. Again, you can use mediation, you can use role play, make sure you do record things, but act it out with them. And remember to tell your child not only they're loved, but they're liked and why. Questions at this point? No? Good. All right then. So other strategies that you can use with all of your children. And again, these are basics, but they're really, really important for our young people that are living in places they haven't chose to live with people they haven't chose to live with. And I don't just mean staff, I mean other young people very often. Going to schools where they may have had to change school because they've moved to another area a long way from where they were before, away from friendship groups. These things are really, really important. Building self-esteem. What do you like about your child? And do they know this? It's going back to what I was saying about liking before. Making sure that we always tell our children what is likable. Excuse me, so that they can build on that strength for themselves. What does your child like about themselves? How can we and they build on that? Do you know what they like about themselves? Do you know if they like, for example, that they're good at sport, or they can cook, or that they're good at gaming, or they're good at making people laugh, going back to that? Good at keeping themselves clean and looking smart? Are they good at... Find out what they think they like about themselves and build on that. Listening to them. What are they not saying? You know, very often they'll come home and they won't say very much. They might say, oh yeah, it was good, it was fine. Yeah, all right then. What are they not saying? Unpick that with them. Try to find out what they're missing. Writing or keeping a journal or blog is a really, really good thing for a child to do. Excuse me. If they're having a hard time. And you could go with them to find a really nice book, diary, journal that they can use. And that's starting the element of choice with them. This is what I want to write in, this is how I want to do it. And it could be by hand, it could be on their phones, it could be on their laptops. How? And do that with them. How can you empower them to increase their circle of friends? Very often our children have antennae where they can walk into a town and they can spot somebody else that they're potentially going to get into problems with. How can you empower them to find positive people in their lives, whether that be joining an activity, joining a sport, a team game, a library, anywhere? Look at your young people and find out. It could be linked with their faith. So is there a good church, mosque, temple, whatever in your area that they may want to go along to? Is there a drama group that they could join, that they could get involved with, that helps build self-esteem? Is there a choir? And you might be thinking, oh, they're not the kind of things my young people would be interested in. How do you know? Have you asked them? Do you know what's actually in your community, in your neighbourhood that they could be involved in? Is there a baking group? There will be something. Find it with them so that they can increase their circle of friends. So they're not all just tied in with what is happening in the house and with you and with the peers in the house. Let's find somebody else for them as well, because you're looking at them moving on into adulthood eventually, aren't you? And having somebody to do that with. Communication and talking to your child. It's keeping that communication open all of the time. Back to what I said earlier, is being very aware of the impact of banter and not letting it go too far. What is funny to one child or you may be traumatic to another person. So often I've heard discussions where there's like comments going on and it's banter and people say, it's just bants, what's the matter with you? And like there's somebody in a corner and you can see that from their body language, they're like, I really don't like this. And someone else will say, haven't you got a sense of humour? Or you're not funny anymore. And sort of, again, it's going back and down and that whole bullying thing tied in with banter. Beware of othering. It's not other people's responsibility. If you see bullying taking place in any arena, call it out. Whether that be at the school, obviously you can't go into the school and actually call out the other child. I've been tempted to do this when my great nephew was being bullied. And my nephew said to me, please don't, Auntie Ree, you'll make it worse. Because I was an Ofsted inspector at the time. But they dealt with it appropriately. They did go into the school, they did speak to, and my great nephew is neurodivergent, so he was having a really tough time. They did go into the school and it was dealt with in that way. So talk to the appropriate people, but as well as the child. You can't physically go and take hold of the child who's bullying yourself. Gets into all sorts of trouble. Any questions at this point? No, and I know these are all obvious things, and I know you're probably all doing them, and some of you are sitting there thinking, I knew this. Great. Are you putting it into practice? And the so what principle applies. So what has been the impact for your child? Is it making a difference for the children that you care for? So now we're going to look at bullying between staff, because our children watch our staff and they see how they interact with each other. And they get a lot of their lessons on learning from there. So bullying between staff members can take many forms. And that's not only harmful to your individual team members, but young people will pick up on it, which could impact on their well-being. They may learn it's acceptable to behave in this way because staff are doing it and join in, or feel insecure because they could be next. You know, so if a staff member they're looking at is making comments, picking on another staff member, instead of sort of laughing and like, oh yeah, it's okay, they might think, okay, if they can have a go at him, are they going to have a go at me next? So it's important to be on the lookout for a variety of unacceptable behaviour that may occur through your teams. Okay, so when you're looking at your team, there are some negative behaviours that you can identify. And you may see it in team meetings, you may see it in handovers. If you're on the floor, you know, if you're sort of in the home yourself, intimidating, undermining, or hostile comments or gestures. And that could be really overt, or little comments, you know, little snide comments. Persistent teasing or humiliation. Again, people might think this is really, really funny to talk about somebody's size. I heard it in a team when I was an Ofsted inspector. It was being described to me, different team members, and this person was described to me as morbidly obese. I was like, pardon? And when I said, why would you use that phrase? I was told, well, she is. And it's easy for you to work out which one she is because she's the one in the corner that's morbidly obese. And they clearly thought they were being funny. And they also clearly thought that they were being descriptive. But I could see the damage on that staff member's face. So it's about being aware of the language that you use. Any passive aggressive comments or insults. You know, the kind of little asides that are said that you don't realise till you kind of think about it. Did they really mean that? And yeah, they did. Constant unfair criticism or blame. Taking credit for another person's work. Isolation or exclusion of another person. Making possible demands or deadlines. Now, that's something more that staff in senior positions, whether it be the senior in the team or deputy manager, hopefully not yourselves, are doing that as a way of control. Aggressive verbal or non-verbal communication, including digital communication, for example, in emails or WhatsApp groups. Very often, staff groups have a WhatsApp group in order to communicate with each other. And managers do that as well. And I've seen messages where it has very quickly deteriorated into slanging matches and one person being blamed. It's about being aware of that and being aware of the impact that is having on that staff member. Because if our staff are not happy and don't feel safe at work and are being bullied, then our children won't feel safe and happy. So how do you handle bullying in your team? It's really important to keep open communication with your team to ensure no one becomes the target of such behaviour. Team bullying may not always be apparent, so encourage individuals to speak up about mistreatment as soon as they identify it. Now, that could be the person being bullied or somebody who observes it. Educate your team members on what classifies as acceptable and unacceptable behaviour, including banter and gossip. And I know I keep coming to banter, but I've seen so often in children's homes how humour can be used in a damaging way, and gossip as well. What one person perceives to be sharing information, somebody else may perceive as gossip. So make it really, really clear about what levels you accept, what's acceptable in your home for sharing of personal information, and who that can be shared with. And I'll come back to again, what constitutes as banter for one person can so easily be perceived as bullying by another. And you may, and I'm thinking of a different home I worked with where there was a great deal of banter going on. 2 or 3 members of staff who are kind of ultra powerful were using banter as a way of putting other staff down who didn't understand their banter. And I was called in to do a team meeting with them to actually look at how it was impacting them. Of the 3 that had been involved in the banter, 2 hadn't understood the impact that it was having on the other staff, and particularly one staff member, and that they had felt bullied and therefore they had been bullying. 1 fully understood, and it was a control measure of them because they were feeling insecure in their role. They'd recently been promoted, and they saw it as a way of having their gang around them so that they could control others. So be really, really conscious of that. And as I said, are they clear on what personal information can be shared by and about each other? Gossip spreads and can be magnified in the telling. I'm sure when we come to the question and answer session, a number of you will have been involved in situations where gossip has spread amongst the staff team that has caused damage, which in the long term can cause damage to our children. And evaluate your policies at least annually to ensure they're up to date with any workplace changes. Really important. It's not a tick box exercise. I know you look at when Ofsted come, they want to see what all of the policies are. Have you got them? And very often people will, I've seen it so often, they will, every year, they will say reviewed and put the date on each year. And they think that's enough because they don't think they need to actually look at it. Read it, reread it. Has anything changed Are you working in a different way? Have you learned something new? Have you learned something from an incident that has occurred that meant that you've slightly changed your practice, or you've upped your practice, or you've done some training? Put that in your policy, make it really clear, and make sure that all of your staff understand that. The policies are there so that our staff know how to work consistently, and so that they understand what the expectations are. They're not there just to like tick a box for Ofsted or for the regulations. And one of the most important things you can do on this earth is to let people know they're not alone. And that's a really, really simple thing, but it's a really, really major thing. And it's something that we can do every day and are doing, I know, every day. So now it's down to all of you. I've done the waffly bits and it's for you. If you're still there, there's loads of blobs.
There's a question in the chat, Marie. Somebody asking whether bullying can be seen as a form of abuse.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. So this is what I meant about ensuring that your policies are up to date and that you all of your staff team understand what is in there. So when you come to update any of your policies, and do you remember what I said going back to the point in supported accommodation, that it doesn't specifically talk about bullying in the quality standards? Thank you for who you've just put your camera on. Brilliant. If everybody could, that would be magic, so we can all see each other. Thank you. Some people are beginning to arrive. I love it. Yeah, remember what I was saying in supported accommodation? It doesn't specifically state bullying, but it does talk about abuse in different forms. And that's where bullying can come in, because bullying can be physical abuse. It can be psychological abuse. It's cyber, all of those different things. So bullying, yes, can come under abuse. And that's why you don't just peer-to-peer, if it's in your house, make sure you record it in peer-to-peer conflicts as well, and make sure you record what you do, what the outcomes are, and if both young people are happy with the outcome and what happened as a result. You know, if a young person makes a complaint, very, very often, children's homes and supported accommodation, you don't like to record there's been a complaint, and so you don't do it. You might record it in the dailies, you might put a little bit in key work, but you don't record it as a complaint, and bullying can come into the complaint section. It's important that you do record it, record that complaint, because that's listening to the child or young person's voice, it's hearing what they're saying, and then you record what you did. And the so what is, so what was the outcome of that? Like, and so if a child comes back at a later time to look at their records and they say to you, oh, do you remember that time when I felt really bad with, I'm going to use the name Fred, because I've been talking about Freddie Flintoff this morning, so Fred's in my head. So remember that time with Fred when I was having a really hard time and I talked to you about it? What did we do? And you can tell them, but also if they look at their records, it's recorded. I talked to you about Fred, you did this, and afterwards I felt, and it's a reminder for them that they were heard, that they were valued, they were respected. But also when Ofsted come and look, they know there are going to be some complaints at some time, there are going to be issues, there are going to be irritants. If they read there's been absolutely nothing, it's a bit like, really? But if they read there was this, and I did this, and the child felt this, and afterwards record what you learnt from that and what you did as a result. So it could be that as a result of that, it's not just that you updated their individual risk assessment, care plan, behaviour support plan, but as a result of that, you looked at ways where young people interacted with each other. Are they left alone in the kitchen, or is a member of staff always there? Are they encouraged to take part in activity together? So it's looking at those things and making sure you record that, because as well as by recording that, You might not always remember to always verbally tell other staff members what you've done, but if it's in there, they can go back and look and it's there. And it's there for everybody to see. And so you've got that consistent message moving forward. Does that answer that? Who asked that question? Do you feel brave enough to say who you were?
Hello, my name is Hola. I actually asked the question from Home Care Unit.
Okay. Is your screen on? I can't see. Wave at me, please. No? Okay. But hopefully that has answered that question for you, has it? Yeah?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions for anybody? No? Can I ask you a question then? I know that a lot of the stuff in this was simple. I'm really aware of that. But from some of the things I've said, did that trigger with you any situations you may have had in your homes where you dealt with a situation that perhaps we can all learn from, or where you didn't deal with it maybe as you should, and that as a result of this today, you're going to go and do something slightly differently? Lorraine. Lorraine?
I just wanted to share an experience with you, just based
Please
on
do. Yeah.
from what you was saying about when Ofsted come out to these to our homes and to do their inspections and speak to our young people. You do find the general is, oh, you know, we don't want to show this, we don't want to do this, blah blah blah. From a personal experience, which happened to me this year, a young person who I look after, I get on really well with. We've always had a really good relationship. Ofsted came out to inspect the home, and this young person told the Ofsted inspector that I shame her.
Oh.
Yeah, it had no impact, and this is just reassurance for everyone to not be afraid of Ofsted. Be honest. They knew the allegation management plan we had put in place, and it was done. It was investigated. It wasn't truth. There was a tiny nugget of something that had been said, and the young person had turned it into her own truth, which, you know, that's absolutely fine. But it was investigated. There was mediation. There was conversations that was had around it. Just don't ever hide things that are said, because as you
Absolutely.
said, Ofsted, you know, they will come out and they'll visit you, and if there's absolutely nothing there, they'll go looking for it, and then when they find it, it's like you've been hiding it. So I just wanted to share that, and that was from a personal experience, because I was absolutely mortified, thinking, oh my gosh. And it didn't have any impact on the rating we got. So
yeah. What they would have been pleased at, Lorraine, and thank you for sharing that, is that it was dealt with before it was recorded, and the so what was dealt with. And that's the important thing. Do not hide in your records. Be open. Yeah. Because Ofsted aren't there to trip you up. They're really not.
Yeah, no, transparency is key.
Yeah. They want to know that what you're doing, and if you think about it as a like separate pair of eyes, sort of critical supportive eyes, they want to know that what you're doing is making a difference in that child's life. And yes, there are the regulations to work to, but that's why I'm saying don't think of the regulations as something scary. Think of them as your menu, you know, and I've just been in the States for a few weeks with a friend, and one of the things she's 82 now, and one of the things she loves to do is cook and bake. So she has all these sort of menus, and we were going to another friend's funeral, and we wanted to make sure that we had enough food to take with us. And so we had loads of recipes And we went and got all the ingredients and we baked them all. And then when we got there, it was a way of sharing. But those ingredients showed us the clear steps to follow, and we had an outcome. And that's what if you look at the quality standards in the regulations, there's your menu, there's your ingredients. Now they're going to be slightly different for everybody, because even if we follow exactly the same menu, most of us will have a slightly different cake at the end of it. And it's going to be the same in our homes. But if we've got all those things in place, we're doing it. Have any of you had had a situation where a young person you're working with has been bullied at school, and you've maybe had to take some action, take some steps in order to address that? And what did you do? Is that something you could share with the rest of us? No? Fab. If your kids are. What about in your staff teams? Have you seen situations in your staff teams where there have been issues? No. Okay, that's magic. If all your staff teams are working perfectly together, that is absolutely brilliant.
Can I just say there's a fine line between conflict and bullying, isn't there?
Yes.